Well, welcome everyone to today's episode of TMI Advice You Didn't Want. Today we're talking about how to love yourself when you're unlovable. I feel like this topic has been so prevalent throughout our entire podcast, but we keep getting more and more questions on our TikTok about loving ourselves. And I think that this is something that we are going to continually go back to again and again because of how important this topic truly is. So we're going to dive into this a little bit more today. So in case we haven't met, my name is Karen.
And my name is Ashley. And I think that this is probably one of the most important topics because
Yeah,
how you feel about yourself affects everything. It's like that saying, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you want to have a life that you love, like the foundation comes from loving yourself. Like you cannot love your life if you don't love yourself.
absolutely. And this is one of the unfortunate side effects of our culture, I would say. So, especially here in the US. So, you're obviously in Canada, but Canada does things similarly to what we do here in the US. But I feel like this is an unfortunate side effect of some of the um I'm gonna go there. Some of the Christian upbringings here in the US, right? So here in the US, the thought of self-love sounds selfish to a lot of Christians. And um it can be 100%, okay? But there's a difference between selfish and selfless. Like there's a difference between this self love for yourself that now turns into like this selfish me first, me. And then there's
Mhm.
a difference between I love myself so much that I want to pour into other people. It
Mhm.
becomes this point where it's like, I want to pour so much because I feel so good in my
Yeah.
bones, in my body, in my skin, with my life, that it has to become this thing that now it's like you have to pour into other people because you feel so good. You want other people to feel good too.
Yeah.
And it ends up becoming this outpouring instead of so focused on yourself, right? When you're actually focused so much in a selfish way, that's not self-love. That's
Yeah.
actually the opposite of it because now you've become the most important thing in the room. And when you become the most important thing, you can't pour into other people. You
Mhm.
can't love on other people.
Yeah.
You've become the narcissist in the situation that everything has to revolve around you.
Yeah.
And when it's that way, there's no way you can pour into other people. But when you really focus on that, like true self love, where you can actually look yourself in the mirror and say, Sister, I love you. Or
Yeah.
brother, I don't care. Man, woman, child, doesn't matter. Like, look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I actually really love you and actually truly mean it. There's
Yeah.
something special that can happen when we do that for ourselves.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing is when we love ourselves, it doesn't take away from anyone else.
Right.
Selfishness does, but loving ourselves is like inner. It's never going to take away from other people. And sometimes you're like, okay, I have to say no because I can't do everything. I can't people please and all that kind of stuff. But saying no to things isn't taking away from other people. It's a very different concept. Um, and it's also like holding everyone at equal levels of important.
Mm.
Like, I'm not more important than you because I love myself, you know? We're both equally important human beings, and I love myself and I love you. And like collectively as humans, I love humans because we're all connected. We're all collectively connected. Um, and it's just when it really comes down to the core of it, your inner thoughts are creating all of your experiences and all of your life. So if you're hating on yourself, that's the energy you're getting back to you. And so when you love on yourself, you're getting that beautiful energy back. So,
Yeah. And one of the things that came up on our TikTok this past week was because you had done a video on self love
mhm.
and somebody asked the question of how do I do this? I think that This right here is the cornerstone of everything, because a lot of us have not been told how to do this properly. I know for myself, I grew up in a Christian household and I was taught that self-love is selfish. And it was not really fully described to me, wasn't understood, because my parents didn't understand it. And I would say they still don't necessarily understand it. And so if they didn't understand it, I had to go outside of myself as an adult to kind of figure out what is self-love? How does that look? And how do I do that? One of the first things that really truly taught me self-love was present moment awareness. And you said this in your video, but one of the ways that I truly cultivated this present moment awareness was meditation. And I'm going to go into a meditation that I had within this past week that completely changed my trajectory of everything. And when I say what happened, you're probably going to be like, oh, that's great, but it's not really that big a deal. But the feeling that you get when you have these experiences, you can't replace it. And you realize that there's nothing in your 3D reality that can give you that feeling except for you. That's when you fall so deeply in love with yourself that your 3D reality doesn't matter anymore, because you love yourself so deeply because of an experience that you had in a present moment awareness. So what happened in my meditation, we had done the meditation, and at the end of the meditation, we always lay down because it gives your body the chance to integrate all of that work that you've done to get to that present moment. Okay. So it gives your body that chance to integrate. And that's when the magic started to happen for me. We laid down and I started to go into, so your brain has different levels. I went into what's called a theta brainwave, was in a lucid dream basically. And, started to, it started as a dream, and then I realized that I was dreaming, and then I went completely lucid. Right. So I started to like control the dream. And in this dream, it was a everyday kind of thing. And then suddenly I pulled myself out of the everyday dream into the lucidity of, holy shit, I am everything. There was nothing first. Okay. So I went from the 4D of there's nothing, nowhere, no time, no place, nothing's here, to the 5D of I am everything. And when you actually have the feeling that you are everything, I can't explain it to you until you actually have that feeling that you are everything. And you have it so deeply in your core that it's literally just like, it's just who you are. And you realize, you wake up and you go, holy shit, I am everything. Okay. Like think about that for a second. Okay. I'm going to talk to your conscious mind here for a second, because having this experience is truly life changing. But think about being everything. Think about that for a minute. Like that is omnipresence. That is source. That is infinity. That is everything. Okay. So think about that feeling for a second. I felt so whole in this moment. And I've had this experience before, but every time I have this experience, it reminds me of what I forgot. That I am everything, that I am a part of source, that I am that reflection of source, that I am the words I am. Okay. So I had the thought, I am everything. And then I had the thought, I can create anything. And then it started to get really interesting, because my brain started to send out these signals. I could feel it. I could hear it in my ears. It was kind of like Morse code, right? Like this beeping of like, I can create anything. And there's like this signal being sent out from my brain of I can create anything. And that's when I had the feeling of, oh my God, I feel so good. And then it started to get funny, because it was like, I can create anything and I am everything. And when you have that realization, when you're sending that signal out and you're feeling that feeling of wholeness, of I am everything, of all that that encapsulates, you can't help but start to laugh at yourself because you're like, holy shit, it's been here the whole time and I missed it. I
Mhm.
forgot because I got disillusioned by my 3D reality. So the more that I spend in that present moment awareness, you can't come back from an experience like that and not love yourself. Let's just say that. You can't come back from an experience like that and business as usual. It's impossible because now you realized, holy shit, I'm everything. How do I fit back into my little body? Like that's literally the thought that you can have too, where you're like, how do I fit back into this body? How does it get contained? And it's like you start to realize like, oh my God, I love myself. I
Mhm.
love what I've created. And that for me is what really cultivated a lot of my self love. I did a lot of things that you'll hear, like walking past the mirror, looking at myself and saying, I love you. Doing all of those things are great. But the present moment awareness is what created that deep self love for myself that is like, oh my God. Like, if anybody ever asks me, how do I do it? Get present to yourself. And
Mhm.
that sometimes means sitting alone quietly.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're not used to doing that. That's not easy. That's hard. Like if you're used to running around and sitting on your phone and doing, sitting and doing nothing can be really uncomfortable because now your body just wants to get up and go because that's what it's used to. But when you love yourself so much that you're present, that's where beautiful things can happen.
Yeah. Well, when you're constantly distracting yourself, you're not able to know what you're really thinking, what you're really saying to yourself. Like
Yeah.
that awareness just isn't there. And when you're constantly busy, you might notice, oh, that wasn't that great, but it's really not going to have the time and space to rewire that because you're too busy. And that quiet time is so necessary. And I know like you talked about meditation, and for me, it was like Dr. Caroline Leaf's book. That's what taught me how to rewire my brain. And so she talks about her Dirty Dozens, and her original book I loved way more. It's orange, not blue, and she walks you through very specifically how to like rewire your brain. Whereas the newer one is not as specific and not as like a handheld walkthrough. But essentially, what you're doing is you're gathering all the things that you think about yourself, all the things that you think about your situations, your surroundings, the other people that you interact with. And you're writing it as if it's already happened in the way that you desire it, not as it's actually happening. Anything that's coming up of what you don't want, you're canceling that and changing that to be able to manifest what you truly want. That's essentially what like manifestation is you're rewiring your life. You're reprogramming your life and being like, okay, this is all the things that are showing up in my collect or in my 3D. And so what am I doing to have those things show up with me? And there are going to be times where it's just a matter of that's just life, you know? Um, like I have some not great people in my life right now, and I believe that they're there not for like a specific reason or purpose or any of that kind of stuff. It's just it is what it is. That's part of the path that I chose with the people I chose to put in my life. And so now it's how do I love myself through the situation and how do I rewire the situation so it shows up the way I wanted it to. And technically, I've already started doing that because I wanted them out of my life a little bit, which I talked about on my last podcast. And now they're out of my life significantly more than they ever were. And so it's also when you love yourself, when those negative situations happen, when those negative things happen, like there's going to be that initial reaction, but after that, it doesn't matter because you love yourself, and that is your home. Your home is coming back to that love every single time. And so, anyways, that was a little bit off, but going back to the journaling, you're journaling the life that you want. And then that's what you're going to manifest when you pour into that, when you're getting rid of all the things that you don't want and you're focusing on the things that you do want. That's essentially manifesting, and that's also rewiring your brain. And so every time you catch yourself being like, oh, that was really stupid, be like, no, like, what did I do well? What am I grateful for? What do I love about that interaction? And so, even like I was saying before the podcast, like I had an interaction with these people I don't like yesterday, and I'm like, I stood up for myself. And I love that I stood up for myself. I think it's important that I do that. And there's a line of like standing up for myself too much and allowing that to be something that I engage in too much. But this was the first time really in 5 years. And so it was like, I felt like it was needed. And I felt like it was a form of like loving myself by saying like, no, you're speaking all these things onto me in my life, and I reject them. And I have been rejecting them internally and behind the scenes, but I felt like I needed to actually voice it to them that I'm rejecting them. And so like it's gonna come out in different ways at different times, but basically you have to be in that moment and be like, what do I need right now? What does my inner child, what does my soul, like what is necessary for me to love myself in this moment? And often we're our worst nightmares. So often it's what am I doing? What do I need to stop doing to myself? And what do I need right now? What do I have to stop saying to myself? So that's, and like how you said, walking past the mirror is huge. Like standing in the mirror and saying, I love you, I love you. Compliments to yourself. I know I've grew up writing post-it notes of affirmations on my mirror and that kind of stuff, or writing affirmations with lip gloss on my mirror, all those kind of things. Those are all helpful because you're saying positive affirmations, so it helps you get into the mindset of loving yourself, but you also have to stop the hatred too.
Yeah, and that's the most important piece of it too. I missed this for years. And I feel like a lot of gurus out there don't necessarily talk about this, unfortunately. But in order to rewire your brain, you have to unlearn first. So you
Mhm.
have to unlearn the negative behaviors
Yeah.
that kept you at a certain level, right? So you have to unlearn the thought of, oh, I hate that I do this. Oh, this is so stupid that I just did that.
Yeah.
Like all of the things that you say to yourself, those have to be unlearned before you can put in something new, before you can relearn something new, like that positive affirmation of, no, I am so smart. I can create. I am everything. Like all of those things are great, but we will a lot of times have the shit underneath, and then we're putting these positive affirmations on top, and it doesn't work because all the shit underneath of saying for so long, oh, but I am stupid, I am whatever, like all that shit is like just covered up by, basically you have a piece of shit that's covered in chocolate. Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to eat that. That's not going to work. You have to unlearn those
Yeah.
other traits first before you're adding in new things. And
Hmm.
once you do that, that's when you can rewire the brain. And that's when your subconscious brain starts to come alive and starts to create the things that you actually do desire,
Yeah.
instead of creating all of the shit that you might be seeing in your 3D reality now, right? Like it's about noticing those things first, and then let me purge those things out. I don't need to do that anymore. Now let's enter something new that I can
Hmm.
actually create what I want to create with. Because otherwise, like I did this for years, where I would have this desire to create something, and I might have created it, but it would still have hints of, well, that's not really what you wanted, though. And it's
Hmm.
because I hadn't rewired the crap that was underneath the chocolate, right? Like you got to rewire that first.
Yeah.
And then you can start to really put in the juicy things that you want to program your brain with.
Yeah. It's like wearing like wet, muddy, cold clothing. And then you're like, oh, I want my life to be better and not wet and muddy. I want to warm up. And you put on all these warm clothes. You're still wearing the wet, muddy clothing, so you're still going to be cold.
Hmm.
Like you haven't changed anything. You have to take off those clothes first. And that's the hard part. That's what I saw like my partner go through a lot too firsthand because like I had gone through a lot of my like dark nights and evolution and all that kind of stuff before I met him. And so then watching him go through that, it and still is like he's learning all these new behaviors of loving himself after growing up in a really horrible home life. And so he has a lot of really negative mindsets and belief systems that he had to rewire, that his parents programmed into him. And that's when we learn. We learn in those early years. And so he started to just put on clothes over top of the muddy, wet clothes. And so he still felt awful and it felt like things weren't working. And it was like, no, we got to take away those wet clothes. Like you have to feel the pain. You have to heal the pain. Like you can't keep on avoiding the pain and learning new skills on top of that. And I think that's so important. Like if you're someone that struggles with like anger or irritability or like self-loathing, like there's pain in you that you need to heal. And you don't need to know what the pain is. You don't need to give it too much attention. You just need to spend time healing that and loving that aspect of you. Um, because otherwise you won't be able to transform it and release it. You have to actually give it attention. And like that's the reason that people talk so much about the dark night of the soul.
Hmm.
It's because they actually have to look at the pain. And that's one of the hardest things to do. So,
Yeah, you have to look at that pain and completely integrate it.
mhm,
Completely. So, we had somebody comment on one of our posts saying, I have a lot of trauma,
mhm,
right? It so I want to say this very carefully because I realize there's a lot that goes into trauma, and I am fortunate that I have not had to have deep levels of trauma as a child that I have to unpack. Because let's be honest, the trauma that we have as children, we don't fully understand it. And so we create a story around it to help ourselves understand it. And that story, a lot of times, doesn't serve us as adults, right? Because I have had traumas as an adult, okay? Let me be honest. Like
mhm.
if anybody's ever gone through any kind of medical training, it's trauma. Like I don't know how to say that any better, but like people will literally talk bad about you to your face. They will like in some instances hurt you, in some instances like there's a lot of trauma that you have to unpack, but these are things that happened to me as an adult. I
Yeah.
was able to look at that and go, it is what it is. And
Yeah.
as a child, though, if somebody is hurting me, beating me, saying things to me, it's hard to unpack that. It's
Yeah.
hard to really understand what's going on. So there is it's the same process, okay?
Yeah.
The exact same process. It may be so uncomfortable though, like really deep uncomfortable, because these are things that we've hidden for years,
Mhm.
especially from childhood, right? We've hidden it for years. We've changed ourselves for
Mhm.
years so that, for example, if you were hurt as a child, you would say, well, how do I be as quiet as possible so that I don't draw attention to myself, right? Those kind of things, when we start to unpack them as adults, can really be painful. And I'm
Mhm.
not going to take away from that at all.
No.
However, it's the exact same process.
Yeah.
And we have to feel them deeply
Mhm.
and not sit in them. Okay, this was hard for me to get. Okay, this was something that I was like, but I don't understand. Like, am I supposed to like go and talk to a counselor about all the traumas that I had as a child? No,
Mhm.
sitting with it,
Yeah.
feeling the pain, feeling the anguish, feeling the irritation, the uncomfortableness, the pain, whatever it is, feeling it, seeing it, integrating it into yourself, and saying, I still love that part of myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. That's the piece of the puzzle where you look at the pain, the trauma, the struggle, and still say, I love that part of myself.
Yeah.
Okay. That's when you can really truly get to the point where you've integrated it.
Hmm.
That you can look at your abuser
Hmm.
and say, this is really hard. Okay. Like, I'm not going to say this is easy. You can look at your abuser and say, I love you.
Hmm.
that that's when you know you've completely let it go. That's when you know. And I've heard people that were abused as children, were like beaten as children,
Hmm.
and were told some of the like hardest things you could ever hear as children. And they have said this. Okay, I'm not saying it, they are. Okay.
Hmm.
When I could think of my abuser, when I could look at my abuser and say, I love you,
Hmm.
that's when they healed. That's when their body integrated that pain
Hmm.
and they could let it go completely and they could actually start to love themselves now. And
Hmm.
this is, I'm not here to say this is an easy process, but it's a process regardless of who you are. Like, regardless of what your childhood looked like, whether it was deep trauma or maybe in my case, religious trauma. Like, I had a lot of religious trauma that I had to unpack, right? And the more I, excuse me, the more I unpack my traumas, the more I start to love myself more deeply. And I have experiences like what I explained earlier, where I have that I am everything, I can create anything.
Hmm.
And then that feeling of wholeness, that feeling of I am. I can't,
Hmm.
I wish I could give that to somebody, but I
Yeah.
can't. You have to kind of walk that walk first in order to really unpack that and experience it for yourself. And it is painful. Those
Hmm.
dark nights of the soul, those are painful, but they
Hmm.
are so worth it. I will look back at every single dark night of the soul that I've ever had and I will say thank you.
Hmm.
Because every time I look at it and say thank you, I realize what that actually was for me. It
Yeah.
wasn't done to me, it was for me.
Yeah.
And realizing who I am and my wholeness of who I am as a creator.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the hard part too, like, because I have many conversations with my kids, and they'll take one situation that was somewhat uncomfortable and they'll hold on to it and they'll build
Mhm.
a story around it, and it will be as if it had happened every single day of their lives.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how things like that can happen, and how we put on this lens, of that is our reality based off of how we as children needed to make sense of that situation. And
Mhm.
that's where there can be like trauma, like significant trauma, just at being birthed.
Mhm.
And that's the reason a lot of people are very pro like home birth and that kind of stuff, is because they're trying to eliminate the trauma at birth. Um, but I just have to say, I do think that you can fully heal without loving your abuser. I do have a slightly different opinion there.
That's
Is
fair.
it possible? Yes. So like my auntie was sexually abused by her father, and she got to a place where she was neutral with him.
Mhm.
So he had a relationship with her kids, never alone with them or anything like that, but like he had a relationship with them, and um, she had him over for supper and things like that. And it was as if he was someone that had never hurt her in any way. Did she love him? No. But she was able to get to a place where it no longer was a big thing. But our body does remember trauma. So
Mhm.
there is also that too, where you can get to a point where you've healed and you've worked through it, and your body can remember it.
Mhm.
And that is okay as well. Because like it's what you want to get out of is reliving it as if it's happening over and over again, where things are triggering you over and over again and all that kind of stuff. You want to get to a place where it's like that happened, that wasn't great, but I'm okay now. And
Mhm.
right now I'm good. And so I think that's really important because you can have this neutrality around it and remember that it wasn't fun. It was awful. It was a horrible experience. And that person, you can see that person and feel nothing, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And like they're a stranger on the street kind of thing. And I think that that is the biggest place to be, is where you're not constantly getting tripped by it. And what that looks like for every person is slightly different.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that also that's where that self-love comes from. It's learning to love yourself, and so someone else's actions don't matter. And do we still stand up for ourselves? Do we still speak our truth? Yes, like it doesn't make us a people pleaser doormat, like it just means that we're able to know that we have control over us and only us, and we love us, and that overflows into every area of our life.
Yeah. And I think the most important piece that you talked about was the neutrality,
Hmm.
because that right there is so important, whether it's a abuser from childhood or it's our coworker that's constantly like irritating us or making us angry or whatever. Finding a place of neutrality with
Hmm.
that person or that experience,
Yeah.
getting to a place where, well, it happened.
Yeah.
It happened. Like, that doesn't have to mean the end of the world. It doesn't have to mean anything. Getting to a place where there's no longer a story connected to it.
Yeah.
That's the piece of the puzzle that when we create that, that's when it's like, okay, yeah, I let that go. A
Mhm.
lot of times, what I've seen is when people are like deep in meditation and their body releases that trauma too. That's when they get to the point where, oh, I love my abuser. Okay, so that's not an easy place to get to either. Okay, like I'm not going to sit here and say that that's easy. I've never had that happen to me. Okay, so I'm going to put that out there and explain that. But the people that I've seen, that I've spoken to personally, that have gotten to that place of I love my abuser, it's because they've spent so much time releasing the trauma from their body.
Mhm.
And the way I've seen it done the best is through meditation, basically a self hypnosis, where you're able to like rewire that program in your body. Now, it's not necessary to get to that point, as you said. I don't think that that's necessary at all. But I've seen some pretty crazy things happen when people do get to that experience.
Yeah.
But the most important piece, as you said, is to get to that neutrality of, this is just a situation that happened. Like, for example, you're driving down the road and you run out of gas. It just
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah.
That's an experience that happened to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be good, bad, right, wrong. It doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that this is a part of my reality right now. And we can always rewrite the program too and say, well, how come I ran out of gas? Is it because there's somebody I need to meet? Is there someone I need to connect with? And so we can rewrite and ask that question of ourselves. And in a lot of ways, when we are on this journey, when we are rewriting the programs in our brain, things like that can happen where it's
Mhm.
like, holy shit, this wouldn't have happened before. I would have just been stuck on the side of the road and I would have needed to walk to find gas. But now I have people stopping, and suddenly this person that stopped is actually going to help me with my next business venture, or they're going to help me with, I don't know, like taking care of my house and doing things that I didn't know that I needed or whatever, like all of these things that can come as a result. But yeah, it always comes back to
Yeah.
self love and how much we love ourselves to go down this process of rewriting the programs in our brain.
Well, because in that situation, like say you ran out of gas on the side of the road and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did this. And you're having like a pity party, a tantrum, like you're angry, you're kicking your tires, and this person that you're supposed to meet that's going to give you this business opportunity sees you having a meltdown. Like, I don't think that that's gonna really work out the same way. And
Mhm.
maybe it does, but probably not. you know? And so, like, by having that self-love, you open yourself up to more, and you, because you're not one closed off to everything, but also love is open. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it changes things massively. Or if you're like too hating on yourself and someone comes by and is like, "Oh, do you need help?" And it's like, "No, fuck, I'm so stupid. Like keep going, like whatever." Like that's your inner dialogue and you're like telling people you don't want help because you're just mad at yourself and you miss that opportunity. So,
Yeah, yeah. Life's a game. Let it be a game and play the game and have fun because that's really what we're here to do is just to, I think, really like laugh at ourselves for forgetting who we are.
yeah, definitely.
So I think that's a really great place to end. And I think next time we're going to really dive into that dark night of the soul. So stick with us for that one. But with that, we're going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap. So if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, go ahead, give us a 5-star. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Maybe you're mad at something that we said. Maybe you want to share your thoughts too. Let us know. And if you're listening on YouTube, go ahead, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are as well. And if you're on TikTok, thanks for joining us. We're so glad that you were here with us. So with that, we're going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap for today. See everyone next time.